Hello and welcome to Stronghold Series number 1. I'm Gavin, and I'm joined today by Kale. Kale, how are you, my friend? We're
good.
back. We're back, my friend. It's competitive competitive Wargroove. It's been a little while, huh?
It's been a couple weeks.
It has. There was an auto slots tournament on the Groove of War Discord recently, but
There was.
for some people probably didn't quite fill the competitive itch, I guess. But we're here today to bring you guys a show match. Our goal with the Stronghold series is to find some of the best players in Wargroove, pit them against each other for a prize, and offer you guys some awesome matches to watch. And today, I think we're gonna have some matches. We have Ash as the champion. Ash is the current champion for Groove of War, won tournament number 1. He'll be playing the second and third standing players in that tournament.
Yeah, so it's going to be a rematch between both him and storryeater and Red Halo. I think he beat both of them on the way to the finals, didn't he?
Right, so this is, I know that both players have been preparing. One of our casters, I know Zero, he's going to join us a little bit later on the cast when the game starts. He's been playing him in a few scrims. So Red Halo has actually taken this pretty seriously. I'm not as well informed on what storryeater's been doing, but I'm sure he's had this in his mind for a while since we invited him.
So it was somebody else who fought Story. Was it Red Halo that beat storryeater?
I think so. So it's a little weird the way we did it. We did do it by standings. We didn't do it by placement. So storryeater did lose, I believe, on Doc's side of the bracket, but
Yeah.
storryeater ended up with an overall higher seed, so we ended up inviting him first. So, a few things before we start. We just want to give you a quick breakdown of what is Stronghold Series. The Stronghold Series is a King of the Hill format show match, and we host it about twice a month, give or take. Sometimes we might only host it once a month, sometimes we'll host it once every 3 weeks, something like that. And the way it works is we have a champion. The current champion of the Stronghold series is Ash. He gets it by default by being the first Groove of War winner. He'll face 2 challengers today in a best-of-1 set. Whoever wins the first best-of-1 will move on to play the second challenger, which in today's case is Red Halo. So, potentially, we could have either an upset by storryeater or a rematch of Grand Finals for Groove of War. There are a few things you guys should keep in mind with the general rule set. We are not allowing Tenri or Nuru, kind of following in line with a lot of competitive suggestions. Talk about that for a second, Kale.
Yeah, I think the general feeling right now is they're just too strong. There's some nerfs coming down the line for both of them. Chucklefish is still exactly deciding what to do with Nuru, but Tenri is getting taken down to medium groove for sure, which should make her a lot less strong than she is now, because her on fast groove she just gets so much tempo that it's almost impossible for the other player to make a comeback unless they're Nuru. So it's good that is the rule set. And another good thing about that is we don't have to hear their themes every game. We actually get to hear the themes of the other commanders.
I'm actually pretty curious to see, like, after we now have the game for 3-4 weeks now, what are we gonna see commander-wise? Did some players sort of change it up a bit?
Probably Ragna, Caesar, Emmerich, and Mercia are like the 4, I think, is what's generally thought of as the 4 other best commanders. But we'll see.
Another quick rule that we want to point out is that there is no weather. We experimented that with Grand Finals of Groove of War. Weather is pretty much first player advantage in every case. There's literally no reason you would want weather as player 2.
Yeah, they really need to change it so that player 2 can have weather start on their turn. If they do that, then the random weather is okay. But as it is now, we definitely need always sunny.
A lot of things are like in experiment, but as far as what we're playing, we're going with what we have to do for bans. The last general rule is just we're trying to shorten turns a little bit. There's quote unquote a no stalling rule. Only really going to be a problem if the players kind of deem it necessary, so we'll keep an eye on that. Meme all you want about it, chat. I know you've got it ready, but we do have that in mind. These are best of one sets, so we won't be here all day. Hopefully, we'll just show you 2 really solid games.
Should only be a couple hours.
We do have.
We're here for 5 hours.
We do have a map pool of 5, and we won't go over every map specifically, but we'll talk about the maps as they appear in the series. Just to give you guys some reference, the challenger, in this case Story Eater for Game 1, is going to be picking either the side or the map, and I do want to confirm that he elected side, and it looks like Ash is going to play Skirmish. So...
Cool. Skirmish was like one of the first maps we ever really tried in the Discord to get a lot of feedback on. It was made by Pokelols, and I think it took us like 3 days until we got to a pretty satisfactory spot. It's a fun map. It's smaller than a lot of the maps in the map pool, but it just has a very simple and straightforward kind of style. But it can also be kind of deceptive with what angles of attack and everything, and the build orders. So I'm interested to see how it's played.
So that is going to be lined up for Game 1. The person who picked side did get to ban one map. Story Eater ended up banning, I believe, Valder's Bane.
Valder's Bane, the biggest map in the map pool, I think, with the most income.
I'll confirm that again later. But yeah, so once again, before we go, we just want to quickly introduce our competitors once more. Ash was the Groove of War winner. He'll be playing Story Eater, the 3rd seed for the tournament. The winner of that will be playing Red Halo in a potential Grand Finals rematch. I'm expecting some great things from our competitors. If you guys want to be competitors in the next Stronghold series, type in !Stronghold. I'll even do it for you. !Stronghold. There's an application form. Put in your skills, what you've accomplished, why you think you should be one of our top challengers for the Stronghold series. I'm sure this link will start making its way around Discord, and you guys can take on the next champion for the Stronghold series. There is a prize to this, by the way. We're offering up $10 to the winner, so not too bad for winning 1 or 2 games. That's half of a Wargroove. But that'll change up here and there. But either way, they're not playing for nothing. They're not playing for nothing. They're not playing for honor. They are playing for a small prize pool. And with that, the players are getting ready for their game. We'll see you guys on the other side of a very quick break. I'm actually going to go ahead and pass off the caster's torch to Kale and our new co-commentators, Vi and Zero, for today. So this is the last you'll hear from me. Guys, I'll see you later. We'll see you on the other side of the break for Game 1, Ash versus Story Eater.
Okay. Alright, welcome back to the first Stronghold Series. I'm Kale, and I'm joined by Zeronix. How are you, Zeronix?
Hey, yeah.
And also joined by Vi. How are you, Vi?
I'm alright.
Alright. Alright, we are going to jump into our first game, Story Eater vs. Ash on Skirmish. Story Eater on the worst commander in the game, and Ash on Caesar, the best commander in the game. Have either of you guys played this map too much?
I actually haven't gotten around to this one yet. I've mostly been playing on Baldur's Bane.
I have like one match on this map. I think it was versus you, Kale.
Yeah, I think so. I think you beat my ass on this map. I don't think I've beaten you on the ladder yet, actually. But the capture face on this map is a little bit weird, because it seems like you always want to go with your commander going straight to the racks, but it can actually be pretty vulnerable for player 2 if he takes his commander to the south instead of going to the east and trying to fight player 1's commander.
But it does look like both players are going for the racks just straight away.
Give me one more
Hey, so-
I don't know. I kind of feel like when it comes to the racks, even though losing the middle can be kind of bad, I'd also think that losing ground production is really awful because it's so hard to keep up, especially when you only have 1 racks to 2.
Right. So the only minor differences we're going to see at the beginning here is that Ash started making pikes right away, while Story Eater stuck with swords. I think pikes are actually better just from that closer racks on this map, just because they have no problem getting into the fight.
Yeah. And also you have, more money to start with, so you might as well use it to make a more expensive unit.
Right.
An interesting
I do think
matchup.
that sword might let him get a couple of the cities in the middle, though.
Yeah, that's one of the tough things for player 2 is that he has to fight for the middle if player 1 is making swords. But at the same time, it's pretty easy for player 2 to get a counterattack into mid.
I think those pikes will have little problem dealing with the swords in the center. Especially because those pikes are set up to crit, and those swords are separated from their commander, so they won't be able to crit.
Right.
True, but Sigurd
Story
is
Eater.
moving to the middle right now.
Wow, Story Eater goes for an ambitious play, moving towards the neutral village.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I think that's the play, because even if he could capture it, Caesar's just gonna take it back immediately and get charged for it. So
Right, exactly.
I don't know why he.
Maybe he just wants to body block Caesar off mid, but there's so many ways for him to actually get into the middle there that I don't think that's good.
Build a alchemist from the south base. Is it possible he intends to fight Caesar there on the forest?
Maybe. But it doesn't
His
look
better
like it.
play probably would have been
Alright, never mind.
to move that toward middle earlier.
Right.
Alright, so Ash going largely pikes so far. Yeah. Well, seems that Story Eater is sticking with a sword plus alchemist build. Interesting.
It's a little
See
bit
how
odd,
this will play out.
especially since Ash has not gone for his tower at all. Mages are good because of their movement speed, especially on this map, because they can get into the forest on the first turn after they're made. But they don't particularly excel against pikes. I mean,
They do have a
right.
good first strike against them, at least.
Right, but if you think about the gold versus gold, the second pike is always just going to come in and kill the mage.
Yeah. It's really it's really a question of whether you can get a great first strike with the mage, because if you can, and then protect it, say maybe the commander or a sword, and the mage will keep getting first strikes.
They're more good for softening them up. Like, you bring in the mages, hit them, and then, you know, commander or swords or whatever, finish the job.
Right. I think
Ash taking some time to think here.
Yeah, I think he's debating if he wants to take Caesar into the mountain or just go into the forest on the south and then go after that village. There's really nothing that threatens Caesar at the bottom there, and he can just fight those swords to get charge.
Yeah, exactly. And he's also threatening village right now.
I think if I were storryeater, I would probably focus all of my money on the bottom. Because if Ash can't make a big unit up top to threaten Sigrid, then she can just go up there and fight all of the units on her own. Because that's one thing that Sigrid does really well on maps like with that have 2 lanes. She can pretty much fight an entire army by herself because of her groove.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so it does look like Ash is bringing his... Oh, and we see the early trap.
It's really... I don't think it's good on this map, to be honest.
That trap is severely restricted by the flagstone and forest.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to take a long detour around the back to get into the game.
Right.
It will take a little bit, but he does have plenty to protect it right now, and also it does cover the middle well.
Right, I'm interested to see what storryeater will build on this turn. Oh, goes for a giant. He's trying to fight on the south base. Oh, and he sends a sword into the pike. I don't think that was a good trade.
No. Let's just recharge for Caesar.
Okay.
I think one thing that Ash needs to be especially aware of here is his front line, his top lane is very vulnerable because of Sigrid being there. So he really needs to be super careful with the positioning of the Treb.
Yeah, definitely. Sigrid is, yeah.
I think if it would almost be best if he sent someone to go take the tower and then make a harpy or something to kind of threaten Sigrid and keep her out of the area. Because that is... Go ahead.
Possible, but storryeater has like 2 mages already, and Sigrid is actually not that afraid of air units because her groove works on any unit.
That's correct.
Looks like he's trying to go for middle control, really.
Yeah.
He's sort of forming up around.
He's abandoned the the village up north, which I think is a good call. It's not really possible to hold that versus Sigrid.
I honestly don't think this hurts him too much, because he'll probably take the middle and bottom at this.
Yeah, he's got all of his line really positioned a lot better than storryeater has his units positioned. Storryeater doesn't really have much that can threaten anything of Ash's, really. It's just the mages. They can get a crit on the pike, but to be honest, I forgot the unit damage of mage versus pikes.
Okay, so Ash does use a pike to kill the sword instead of using Caesar. So he gives up that free charge, but... Oh, so instead he uses Caesar to attack the village.
Yeah, he's going to use Caesar to get just the attack damage on the village, and then next turn he's going to get the capture damage. Maybe, if that golem doesn't come up and smack him in the face. Which I think would not be a bad idea, to be honest.
Yeah, Looks like he could
There isn't
definitely
much
do that.
remnant, but might take some chip from. Actually, no, I can't take chip from the pikes because there's force in the way.
Just continuing with his pike and trip only build. Effective.
Do you think Story Eater should take Sigrid south, or should she go north and try and chip away at the village and then maybe eye the racks?
Tough call, really. Story Eater seems to be trying to engage on the south against Caesar, and he would want Sigrid there for that. But Sigrid's so far away from the south that get there. So I don't know. It depends on how he decides to play this.
So he's gonna take Sigrid south.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really don't like to look at the unit count as far as Story Eater goes. He's really kind of lacking right now.
Yeah.
He does take that pike mid, but his mage is very vulnerable to crits there.
Well, let's take a quick tally. Looks like Ash has 9 units to Story Eaters, and Ash will make at least 2 more units on the truck. So possibly Ash will continue to pull ahead in the unit count.
I think it's important to note the positions of the units more than anything, because Story Eater is going to lose some this very turn.
That 2 health sword is dead.
The sword is dead. The golem will be fine, but he's definitely going to lose the mage too to a crit.
I think this Treb is really useless. It's basically stuck there just hitting that village every turn.
It's true.
Unless he gives it up.
Right. I mean... once again, I'm Kale, and this is the first Stronghold Series. I'm joined by Vi and Zero. Vi, what do you think that Ash should be looking at doing with Caesar right here?
With Caesar, I think he should probably go back and reinforce and then push for the golem, because right now it's kind of overextended. Not really in the sense that it's in danger now, but it's just really far forward.
What about Zero? Do you agree? Or do you think that Caesar should go for the charge on the sword?
It's a tough call. I think for Caesar to go for the charge on the sword, if he positions himself in that forest, then backs Caesar up with spears, because that golem actually does take quite a bit of damage from pikes, and Ash has a lot of them in the area. So, yeah. And he also has like additional units to body block Caesar, shielding it from... Oh, Ash chooses to stay on the forest.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Seems like Caesar could potentially go down to very low health next turn.
Right. It's
If
worth noting
Story Eater.
he does get groove off that. But
I
he's not
think I
really...
see what his intent might be. I think he's going to cap that village next turn and then just immediately heal up it.
Oh, that's possible, yeah.
That does make sense, yeah.
Heal on the enemy's village, not your own.
It's actually not too terrible of a play. The golem will take maybe a little more chip damage.
We should
He
know.
will definitely live.
Caesar will get his groove next turn. He's at
Right.
93%.
Right.
Meanwhile, Sigrid is not going to get her groove next turn.
Yeah, she should get it off that pike, though.
Will be able to use it immediately on the next turn.
Right. I like Sigurd's position more than I like Caesar's, to be honest. Because even though Caesar does have the groove, he has nothing to really use it with. Using it groove with on a bunch of pikes is not really like, it's not great.
It's interesting that Ash went for another trap up north. Because again, that trap is going to be stuck there because of the flagstone and forest. So it looks like his two traps will be very far from the battlefield in the south.
And he hasn't used the first one really at all.
I think he's intending to move one down, keep one on the village, probably.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. But that trap is... But it'd be pretty dangerous for that trap to, say, route through the center.
Right.
So it'd have to route through the back.
He has no line up there, which is the big issue. I mean, he has no defense on those trebs, and storryeater does have that mage up there, which has a huge start range, and it doesn't do bad damage to trebs either.
As much as they're vulnerable, they're really not. They're covering each other, they're far back, they're keeping him from advancing on his village and racks there, and on top of that, it's not like he has any knights or anything that can reach.
That's true.
I would be perfectly happy to keep maybe a small token force up north as storryeater, just keeping those traps pinned down to defense while the rest of my army engages in the south. Because those traps are very valuable, worth a significant investment, and if Ash can't use them well, then, you know...
I think he's going to try and keep the pikes in front of the trebs and keep them on the spaces to occupy any attacks into them. It should be tough for Sigurd to break them. I'm more worried really about Ash's southern front here, because he doesn't really have a lot, and Sigurd can just come in and totally devastate this, because there's not really any threats on her.
Yeah.
There's no threats in the middle, but if she does move down to those pikes, she'd definitely be hurting with Caesar right there too.
Well, the thing is she can pretty much just save her groove and instantly heal off any unit. And storryeater has significant investment in the south with both the golem and the knight, which can mop up anything that looks threatening at all.
It's interesting that Ash went to cap the northern.
Yeah, that is a good
play. That is a good play. Yeah, there's no harm in doing that.
I think, well, the biggest problem with Sigurd would be mostly just getting surrounded, because there is some potential for that at least.
Right.
Again, it is very close to...
Also, you know, now that I think about it, there's a whole bunch of pikes there, and Caesar has groove, which is not ideal.
Right, but the pikes are not really in a great position because of the terrain to get really any threatening area on the Sigurd. They would have to. It
looks like they're about to be. They're sort of reorienting themselves right now. All he has to do is move both pikes forward, and I don't think anything can really do anything to them. And then they'll all be in range.
Well, he has to be really careful of the golem.
The golem is definitely a big threat down there right now.
Yeah. He didn't take that village like we were thinking about.
He didn't do that.
I'm thinking he might actually back up and reinforce this time, because taking the village isn't really wise anymore.
Yeah, right. That would definitely leave Caesar too open to counterattack if he caps the village of Caesar. What do you guys think of Ash's pike and trebuchet strategy?
I don't think it works as well on this map, but at the same time, storryeater hasn't really taken the tower, so he doesn't really have the threats that would normally kind of invalidate such a strategy, so I don't think he has to be too worried about it right now.
I feel more that Ash is misplaying the strategy on this map if he's going to go with it, more than the fact that it's useless on this map. Just because he could have already taken the middle by now,
Right.
just moving them down, but he's been so focused on that one village, I don't know if it was worth the income advantage.
Okay, so Ash does produce a knight. Possibly to use in conjunction with Caesar's Groove. So the ideal position would be to get 4 units, then with Caesar, and then use his Groove.
Ideal,
If you
but
can get it
very
back.
difficult.
Yeah, I don't think you very often get even a 3 unit. Usually it's 2 units that you get the groove off with, and most of the time it's worth it.
You know, potentially, he could be moving those traps into a position where Caesar could, like, move up through the mountains or forest.
Oh,
and
that's interesting. I have
use the groove.
Right. I think Story Eater will probably be cognizant of that particular threat, though, since it's the thing that you think of most often when you're thinking of Caesar is the cheese.
I mean, it's absolutely true. It's just, it would be a big threat to the middle pretty quickly.
Alright, so Story Eater manages to recapture the village.
He doesn't want to give that up.
Yeah.
Don't think that, or fighting for that village is really doing Ash any favors when he probably could have moved middle with everything instead of wasting units on it.
Right.
We want to note that that Story Eater has moved his knight northwards, possibly to counter the traps, because Ash has relatively few units in that area.
Right. Ash's North is very vulnerable. Like I was saying earlier, he's got no front line there, really, and what front line he does is really spread out. So, Vi, if you're Ash in this position, what are you thinking of doing?
I think he's probably going to shore up on the south and push. Because I feel like he can possibly try and guard the trebs or move them down, and Caesar has a few options here. He could move with the spears. He could move up and try and utilize the trebuchets. And really, as much as he's not threatening Story at the moment in the south, he's definitely not in a bad position at all. He has a solid line, and Caesar's there.
What about you, Zero? What are you going to think of doing this in Ash's position?
Ash's position. Well, I do have 2 traps up north and pikes in the south. It's hard to say. Ash's strategy differs a lot from my own. I tend to not go so much for pike and treb. He's going to use his groove.
Could use the groove.
Ooh, did Ash see something? What did Ash see?
He's going for the knight, I think, with the pikes.
Yeah.
He
No,
could take
that's
the
definitely-
knight, he could do some really heavy damage to that pike, and he could also do pretty decent hits to that golem. That's actually not a bad
I think that's what Ash is thinking is probably the golem and the knight. Getting the crit on the golem with the knight, and then killing the knight with the pike crit.
Yeah, that'll do heavy damage to all the bottom line pretty much.
Right.
Sigurd's not in a great position there either at that point because the trebs can move in.
Yeah, once the knight is gone, the trebs have free reign to sort of move down towards the middle.
I think if I was Ash, I would definitely move that southern treb down to the plains tile next to the forest, because it'll start covering the middle and it's not actually threatened by anything. It's
Yeah, that seems ideal. You mean that southern trap, 2 down and 1 right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. Good option. It's interesting to see what Ash will do now. He's already used Caesar Groove. making any attacks.
I think he's looking at the math and seeing if he can actually kill the golem with the knight before he actually kills the...
Pretty sure there's no way he could kill the golem, but he probably
I
can do
don't
some
think
heavy
so.
damage.
Okay, so one thing to remember is that the golem will actually start critting when it's at 40% or below.
Right.
So
Ideally, he'd want to get it as close to 5 as he could and leave it be until the next.
So a knight crit will do approximately 40 damage, 41 damage maybe, on average.
I want to say
Okay.
it's 45, but I'm not entirely positive.
I'm curious why he did that.
I mean, it disabled that knight completely, pretty much.
Right, but it doesn't kill the knight.
Sure,
Guess you don't
but
really-
he either has to reinforce a knight to full, which will be the entire cost of a knight, or he has a useless knight.
Right, but I think if he could have easily removed the piece, is what I'm saying, by moving that pike, the 6 health pike to the right.
I think he's looking to move the 6 health pike down to instantly kill that pike.
That makes sense.
That makes his knight a lot safer, at least. I mean, he's probably going to lose the knight, but either way.
Yeah, I think he loses the knight either way to the pike next to the racks, if he goes for the crit onto the giant.
Still, it's one less spear in the area, and he still has superiority in that regard.
Right.
It's interesting. That knight actually becomes, the low health units become a liability when the commander is in the area, because they're just recharged for the commander, right? So it is possible that Ash has considered this and is trying to enable Caesar to recharge his groove very quickly next turn.
Potentially, but I honestly don't think that'd be his best use. I think he'd rather send the commander in on the golem he can reach.
The golem will probably be crippled this turn by the knight, and the pikes can deal with it afterwards. Pikes do like something like, I want to
30,
say,
I believe, on crit. 20 on normal hit.
so yeah, there isn't really any problem, I think.
It's not an immediate risk, no, but having the golem down there would make storryeater's position even weaker than it already kind of is.
Okay, so Ash recaptures the northern village, so they're still fighting over that one village.
If anything, it's keeping storryeater so busy that just had plenty of free reign in pretty much everywhere else.
Right. Ash's blob here at the bottom. I really don't think that Storryeater's got much that he can do about it.
Yeah, the golem would get overwhelmed, and that's really his last big unit of value. He doesn't have the
Right.
knight. He only has a mage at this point. Aside from that,
The big issue is that he actually has no way to heal that cavalry and keep it alive. So it is pretty much a dead unit.
It
Yeah,
could retreat onto that forest behind the village.
it
That
could
is true.
retreat,
I
but
forgot about that. That's true.
it could retreat, but I don't know. Healing it at this point would seem less useful, I guess. Well, I mean, there's the trebs to consider, but there's so many spears around too. I feel like
Also-
anything you do with the knight, you're gonna lose something to a spear.
Yeah, probably. Also want to say Sigrid is actually in some level of danger right now because of the slowly encroaching unit blob. Not in any immediate danger, but the pressure is there. You can feel the threat creeping up.
I think that really Ash is the one that has to be careful.
Foolish.
I
Because
think he just killed Sigrid.
no, I don't think so.
I'm almost
I think
positive
so.
she's dead.
This has got to be lethal.
That's way too much damage to send Sigrid into, even with... Groove won't save you if you're dead.
So what's tactically possible right now is to
He could get 2
Or-
spear crits, a knight, and Caesar's hit, I think.
It's actually not possible to get to do that because nothing can walk around to the plains up top. You have to hit Sigrid with
Well,
a sword.
there's
from
the
them.
infantry too.
Sigrid's probably dead.
I mean,
Yeah,
on
she is
road,
probably good.
the commander
She's on the
alone
road,
will do
yeah.
45% damage because
This is just it.
there's no defense. I don't know why he did.
Yeah, that was a little too ham.
Yep. So Ash does go for, I think, the optimal play, which is to sack the 4 health.
I mean, that just makes this more guaranteed than it already
Exactly.
is.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah, that's
better this time, but in another situation, it might have gotten the final bit of chip damage. So that is a good play.
I think he really could have. He really would have been okay where he was if he had not gone so far with Sigrid forward. He could have started picking off those pikes at the front and the sword, and he could have sending the golem deep in there was okay. But
honestly, I feel like he should have moved Sigrid back at that point. Middle was pretty much lost.
I don't know. I think he could have stayed a little bit and fought and then gotten the groove off, and probably eaten maybe 3 or 4 units. But
I'm not so sure. I don't think he really could have gotten value against that many units with Sigrid alone, at least. If she had some units with you, I definitely agree that she could have stayed and threatened, but I feel like at that point she was just risking getting threatened out no matter what she...
you don't think the golem's enough?
No, honestly. Not with that. He had so many units middle, including his own commander, which they do
Right.
great against golems on first strike.
Well,
Where do you guys think it
yeah.
like all went wrong for Story Eater? Because the position he was in on his last turn was already pretty bad.
He sacrificed a couple units bottom really early on,
Definitely true.
and for no reason really. And I think that really weakened the bottom position a few turns later when he just didn't have enough bodies, like Vi was saying. If he hadn't have done that, it might have been a lot easier.
If he'd kept those swords around, they would have been able to work together with Sigrid because they can crit when they're next to Sigrid.
Right.
I think his biggest problem was essentially just, aside from sacking all the units, I think he didn't push when he did have an advantage, because he did have an advantage at some point where he had a better set of units out in decent forward positions, and it just let Ash reinforce in the end. But, you know,
Right.
good game all around.
Right. Thanks, Story Eater, for playing with us. Good luck in his next match. What do you think about Ash? How do you think he played?
I think. You want to go first, Bai?
Sure, I'll go first. I feel like Ash could have used his trebs a lot better than he did. But other than that, I can't really say too much about how he played. He definitely took his time and got value out of everything he built.
How about you, Zero?
Yeah. Ash is very well known for his pike and trebuchet strategies. I think he executed that decently in this game, and it brought him the win. Not much else to say.
Well, we will see him again in our next match against Red Halo. Thanks, Story Eater and Melfont, and we'll take a quick break right here, and we'll be back with our next match. welcome back to Groove of War Stronghold Series number 1. This is our second game with Ash and Red Halo, and we're going to be playing on Forgotten Waterways, one of the new maps in the Groove of War map pool. It's made by Xmo5 from the map community and a member of the Advanced Wars by Web community. This map is sort of an experimental map. It features 2 ports, and the only way that the naval units can access the map in the middle is through the rivers, which means aquanauts. Vi and Zero, you both have some experience on this map. Vi, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
It's actually set up pretty interesting. Sorry. In regards to the position of the towers and the water, there's 2 rivers on either side, which feed into one river feeds into one player's port and one river feeds into the other. What you can do is you can send them down the river and have them support your ground troops as well as threaten mostly the sides. However, I've also seen people take balloons or wagons, usually balloons on this map because there's not as many roads, and transport their aquanauts to their enemy's river and then push up that way.
Zero, what are your thoughts on the map?
Definitely what Vi said, and also there's a lot of potential to mix up the early capture phase, because firstly, do you go for the racks first or do you go for the port first? And once you do that, which direction do you send your commander? Down the side or towards the middle? And what do you start with on the starting racks? You could definitely start with an alchemist to speed up your capture phase, or you could just go conventional with a swordsman or something like that. There's a lot of different ways to play this map, and that's why I think it's a really nice map.
Alright, something else to note about this map that you may have noticed is different from some of the other maps in the map pool is that this map has a experimental FTA counter with different commander positions, and we've done this to try and differentiate, because the FTA counter mechanic is not as simple as it was, simple, in Advanced Wars, and so because of the existence of the commander, and so we're trying to experiment with exactly what ways we can get away with making FTA counters, because the commander is a significant FTA mechanic in this game as opposed to others. As we see here, Ash is on player 1 playing Marcia, and on player 2 is Red Halo playing Emmerich, which I'm really happy to see. Who would you favor in this match? Do you like Marcia or Emmerich better?
I think it really all depends on how the fights pan out, because Emmerich can get some really good first strikes and Marcia can heal them off. Right. So it really depends on how they play.
Hey, I do want to know that Ash deviated from his usual choice of Caesar on this map. Indicate that he has a different strategy from what we've already seen, going Pike plus Treb.
Right.
That does not seem to be very possible on this map due to all the rivers blocking off Treb access.
Right. Pike Treb is not very good on this map. A lot of because the terrain does not really allow for really good Treb positioning. First of all, on the initial racks that you have, you've got the 2 forests and the mountain there that block any easy access to the center for the Treb, and then you just don't have a lot of roads. So you're not going to see that particular unit comp too much. What unit comp do you think that you would go for on this map?
I definitely think air units are better on this map than usual, just because they can be deployed so far in front. I think aqua infantry or amphibians will be very powerful on this map, just because of the rivers and all the mobility they have there. Yeah.
There's actually an interesting bit. Those 2 singular river tiles in the middle can allow for aqua infantry to actually contribute to the middle fight.
Yeah. Cool mechanic.
I think the comp I would go for would be probably to send aquanauts both on both rivers if I could, to threaten the enemy and also take control of my side. And then beyond that, I would probably want some knights in the middle, just because they seem like they have pretty good potential there.
Go for, say, maybe a mixed composition. I would want some harpies in the center, just because they can be deployed so quickly. Knights are definitely good. I would definitely want amphibians, as Vi said, because they're very powerful on the rivers. And yeah, there's no like best unit comp on this map.
I feel that air is probably one of the biggest threats to the Aquanauts along the rivers, just because there's probably a few places you can hit them that the mages won't be able to reach.
It's true. And also, if your harpy hits Aquanaut and but you can kill the mage, that's an okay trade. It's like 650 gold for 600. That's not bad.
Yeah, not a terrible trade. I will say, I don't think Spear Trap is quite as bad as it was put before, just because I know that you can have them in the middle in 2 turns from the forward barracks, and then a balloon will pretty much mitigate the problems of moving them around.
Alright, so the balloon
is definitely weaker than your average map. I just don't think that it's not viable here.
We could use this.
Yeah, so the balloon is an interesting play. You basically will have to get a balloon if you hope to deploy tribute does to the center. So it'll be interesting to see whether Ash does go for that.
Pretty sure we could take it as such if he does actually deploy a balloon.
We've seen a fairly similar capture phase so far, although they've both kind of differentiated in the way that they get to it. What's the first tech unit you're going to buy in the situation, do you think?
Honestly, a dragon might be pretty interesting, just for its mobility in the 3 fronts.
Yeah, the dragon is very difficult to stop, has 8 move. Can't really be hit by ground units, except mages. It will take a while to get there.
Won't that kind of be mitigated by a counterbuy of the witch, though? Because the witch has the same move, but it completely counters the dragon.
They actually have 1 less move. And aside from that, I don't think it'd be too hard to protect your dragon, because not only does it have more mobility, but like I said, there's 3 fronts, and you can easily get some mage coverage in between.
Yeah.
At the very least, you could put out a witch if you were going to focus on air like that. Like right after.
I do think I will want to get my unit count as high as possible on this map. We do know that there are like 5 production facilities. You won't use all of them every turn, but you could definitely produce, say, a harpy, aquanaut, and maybe a swordsman and a pike every turn. There's enough money on this map to do that, and tech up according to what the opponent produces. This unit count is pretty important.
I'm not entirely sure how I'd use the racks, but I'd definitely put out a lot of aquanauts on this map, just because they're really easy to just keep putting out.
Okay, so it actually does get the commander on land first. Ash will take like a couple more turns to get Mercia to the mainland. She'll still be kind of stuck there.
Yeah, Ash kind of miscapped, I want to say. His first phases, although it is worth note that Red Halo has the easier route to get to the captures because of the FTA mechanic on this map.
So what I can see right now is that Emmerich is going to move up and possibly try to contest the middle 2 villages, and completely cut off this sword from capturing the 2 villages on the right, because Emmerich will just get free charge from hitting those villages immediately after the sword caps them. So there's no point in going for that for Ash. Yeah.
It could be potentially interesting if he decided to move Mercia directly to the middle, because he's got an infantry going down the side to cap, and
You mean-
he could threaten middle early if he sent the boat over and back.
So you mean like walking Mercia to the center?
No. If you take the barge
I
and
see,
you
yeah.
pick her up, you could put her on the shore tile right next to the...
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
So,
Yeah.
one particularly cheeky thing that Ash can do here is he can get both towers. Or force Emmerich to go for his own tower instead of going north like he looks like he wants to.
I don't think that's really possible, because again, the Aqua infantry will sort of deny that the tower is within 1 day's move range hit of a newly produced amphibian. I don't think it's too possible to tower and you're just going to be giving up a swordsman.
So it does look like Mercia is going to move middle like you were saying, by.
Oh.
It doesn't seem
But Mercia-
particularly bad.
Looking towards the center, we have to note. Instead of
Early
taking
middle presence. Sorry. Early middle presence versus side capping, it seems, unless Red decides to meet Ash.
So one thing that Red could do is cap one village with, say, Emmerich, and then go for the middle villages with Commander and leave the sword to cap the sides. I don't know how good it is. It's definitely possible. Something to consider.
Having the commander on that area with the 4 bridges in that center isn't a bad area to be in. It's very good pressure on all areas of the map there.
So one thing that could have happened, but we didn't see on this map, is in this game at least, is Red did not make an attempt to go for the most southwest village, because that's the way to punish Mercia going center, right? Like you before the enemy sword can cap it, and then the enemy sword has a tough time taking it back from you. This game, it was a possibility.
I think that probably would have been a very good play if he had, because even if he sent... Honestly, even if he sends the 2 swords now, they could take those 2 bottom villages on their own if he doesn't send anything else.
It's true. So Red might be going for that. Now that he's seen that Ash is committing to moving Mercia center.
Seems like he's keeping Emmerich on the side, too.
Yeah, that does look to be a case. Might be questionable to position Emmerich. If you used Emmerich to cap those 2 villages, Emmerich will take a long time to return to the center, which is presumably where the fighting is going to happen. And Emmerich can't really do anything by himself. His groove is to buff his other units, so it'd be kind of bad for Red to separate Emmerich from the rest of his army like that.
Yeah, Emmerich is one of the most important units, or important commanders, to keep a high unit count with, because you want as many units as possible to benefit from your groove.
Yeah, exactly.
So both players are beginning both pikemen every turn and aquanaut every turn.
It does seem to be the case. Ash has more pikemen, because Red decided to go for a couple more early swords. We'll see whether this decision turns out to be beneficial.
I don't think it hurts too much, because even though they're stalled for like 1 turn on the river, they really reach the middle in no time flat, considering even most default maps where spears are really, really good with roads, it takes them 3 turns to walk to the middle anyway.
Right.
True.
In this case, it takes them 2, which is not too far off from a wagon.
So one thing I've been wondering is whether Ash will build air units on this map. Does he...
He's notorious for not liking air.
He is
Or not
allergic to air. I think we might see air out of Red, though. Possibly.
Okay, so this is one of the first turns that Ash can go for a trebuchet if he wants one. So is he gonna go for one? Is the big question in my mind right now.
I feel like it's pointless until you get a balloon. Like, if you were going to build one, you would build a balloon first, because otherwise the trip would just be held up too long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if that was his play, he should have captured his tower and maybe
so
put
he
out a
goes for
balloon.
not taking the tower.
Okay,
So-
Ash
so-
skips the tower capture.
So maybe that's a sign that he's not going air.
Yeah. It's probably a strong indication that he doesn't want air units.
At the very least, he might be trying to get middle presence quickly with Mercy and the Aquanauts. He might try and backcap it with that pike since there's nothing better to do.
Right.
Yeah, that pike is in great position to cap the tower next turn.
I mean, there'd literally be no point not to.
So
I think
You're
Ash
right.
probably makes a cav south of that first initial barracks in the middle there. This is really the only tech unit he can make with his money. I mean, he has... It's strange to me that he's floating so much cash.
yeah, it is. He's floating. So, oh, okay. I was gonna wonder if he was gonna build a balloon from the backward tower, because that balloon actually does serve a purpose. It transports this backward pike to the front very quickly, and next turn it can be in position to transport trebuchet from the forward racks into the center. Sort of a nice leapfrogging play that he could have done, but Ash didn't go for it, so never mind.
He could be floating the money to an attempt to actually put out trebs. He's putting out so many spears, I'd almost be surprised if he...
Right. I think Red Halo is going to start making harpies next turn, though, so I think Ash won't be able to afford the initiative to make trebs, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A lot of spare cash as well.
I think it was a pretty big mistake to not take that tower when you could have, to be honest.
Ash?
Yeah, I think taking that tempo loss on the production building is just not good.
True.
Not sure it hurts him too much, honestly. There's no air in the sky at the moment. He could easily just put out a witch the next turn. Not next turn, but the next turn. So after Reds.
The issue is that it comes after Red's first production.
Sure, but if he puts out a harpy, he puts out a witch. He has the advantage both mobility-wise and just in general.
Well, what if Red takes a witch out, though?
In which case, he might just keep ignoring air.
But he can get witch locked in that kind of case, though. If Red Halo makes a couple of witches and then starts making harpies or dragons, it's pretty tough for Ash to keep control on the map.
Okay, so
Unless
Red did go for a knight there.
That's
Interesting.
odd position to me. I think that was an error by Red, because if you make a knight in that forest up top, it can just cross the river.
He might
That's-
potentially be
that's-
too used to advanced wars and not being able to cross rivers with this.
That's probably true. It costs 4 move for a knight to go across the river, but it can.
3, I believe.
Well,
Oh,
that is
no,
the case.
you're right. You're right. It's 4. But yeah, it would only take a couple turns and then it'd be fine.
So Red might be intending to use that knight to support the push on the southwest. That's the only thing I can think of that makes sense for that positioning. Because if you
It does make sense.
That
There's
could be
really
true.
nothing else to threaten a knight down there.
Yeah,
And,
what he
the
might be
pikes are also-
thinking. What he might be thinking is he can use the knight to threaten the aquas and stop any aquanaut push on the bottom there, which is not a bad idea because knights absolutely trample aquanauts.
and the pikes are too far away to really do anything about it. Yeah, so it might be what Red is thinking. Move Emmerich to the center. And for a central assault. So he will be using that sword on the right to cap the remaining 2 villages. Okay, interesting.
Seems like he's slowly forming up towards the middle, and that's honestly starting to look like the other game where he just slowly kind of forms up around the commander.
Right.
Yeah.
The only question here is what tech choices he makes, really. He's got 1700.
Balloon Treb, potentially. Is there enough?
There's enough.
Yeah.
There's enough for that, and then spare cash for an Aquanaut and a Pike.
Seems like a reasonable choice then.
Both players are going for a very Pike and Aquanaut heavy build. Okay, well, Ash is going Pike heavy. Red Hill, not so much. He has a couple Pikes, but not that many. Oh,
Ash does have a really big threat middle right now.
which is to cap. You're talking about knocking out that lone village, right? That center village.
Yeah, well, he could take the village. He can pretty much get center control, and I don't think Red can do too much about it right now.
Red isn't in position on this turn to do anything about it, but he could be in position next turn. Especially if Red builds an air unit, because Ash still doesn't have any anti-air. Play
That
for
would
Red.
probably be his best bet.
Yeah, so interesting turn would be to make a mage and a harpy. Mage in anticipation of a forward witch. Ash doesn't have any anti-air currently. Yeah, and I think that would serve as a great counter to any central push Ash might.
I think that would be pretty good to myself. That's probably what I would do, is put down the mage and the harpy. But another option is also just going for a witch. But another reason the witch can be good is because if you get enough witches in the middle on this map, you can pretty much take complete control, because you can just hex the hell out of everything.
Ash could potentially support himself with a mage pretty quickly, because they do have really good movement.
Yeah, mage can get from the racks south of the forest south of the racks to the forest south of the village in one move, so he can really quickly get to mid.
So Ash continues to build pikes. Looks like he's going to float all that cash unless he builds an air unit. So will Ash build an air unit? Perhaps, perhaps not. If he doesn't, he'll be floating 1,000 and a bit. Say the
He doesn't
least.
seem in too much of a rush to spend it.
Yeah, he's floating 1,200. I think he's waiting for a counter, I guess? Or maybe he himself is thinking about making a dragon?
Well, he
I don't
does
know.
float the 1,200. What?
Yeah. That's a lot of money to float.
To question that decision, really. I mean, maybe it won't lead to anything immediately bad, but I don't think it can be right to not spend that much money.
Even for sheer unit count, he could put out a couple air units at this point and probably not even notice the difference.
Exactly. Look at the overview. It seems that Ash has an income lead at the moment. He has 1,100, well, 1,100 income per turn. So you could easily have, say, bought a harpy or something, and still had a lot of cash to buy a trab or a balloon next turn. So it makes me wonder why he didn't do that. Does he have some other plan for all this money that he's not spending?
It's either that or he just wants his spear count to be up that high.
Yeah, exactly.
The best unit in the game. Spears. Alright, so
I have a
got a
spell
hit
for this.
on the village.
I mean, that's just
giving
it's
Emery
free
that
charger
shot.
in there.
Yeah, no real
So-
threat.
Right. So he's going to have a little charge a bit ahead of Mercia. which I think in any situation, Emmerich is probably going to get his group off before Mercia does.
Because unlike Mercia, or unlike Emmerich, Mercia has to hold her groove.
Right.
Can't just use it immediately.
Right.
Not
Either
necessarily a bad thing either, though.
Right. So, like we were talking about, Red Halo brings his Southern Knight, swings it around to the southwest, probably aiming at stopping any amphibian push towards the south.
Mm-hmm. That does seem to be the case. He's also making a somewhat small push for the center, trying to defend that central village that's now under threat.
Yeah, I think what he's doing is just trying to get his units in position to contest anything that Ash does, trying to form up lines and see where he can try and get an opening.
Seemed to be the case. So I am interested to see whether Red will build an air unit this turn.
Is he going to buy anything from his tower is the big question.
Is anyone?
Yeah,
Does that matter?
It's interesting for me to watch this because I go air units all the time. So
I actually heavily favor air units in Advanced Wars. Like, I'm almost known for it, but almost. I am known for it. It's just, I feel like it's a lot harsher to field them in this game and more situational or map dependent.
okay,
Which is
Yeah, it's tough.
somewhat
because-
unfortunate because they are my favorite.
It's tough because of the existence of mages, I think.
Absolutely. In Advanced Wars, you can't bring your anti-airs up on mountains, and
Right.
basically you can park your units on mountains
okay, so
so
he
that
does buy
they
a
threaten
Harpy.
without being threatened.
He does buy the Harpy.
Harpy.
So he's going to have to
Also,
build a sword out of one of these racks.
West Red has made a push towards the southwestern village. If Ash retreats next turn, he will be able to neutralize it.
Yeah, Ash is actually pretty vulnerable here in the southwest because of the existence of that knight. Because he can't really support with the amphibians while that knight is there, because the amphibians just immediately die to a knight.
They do get good first hit though, so he has to keep that knight pretty out of range.
If you had
Yeah,
maybe
well,
two
So
or
he might be able to do some shenanigans like that corner tile on the river, where it's only vulnerable from the right. Like if he moves the knight in, then that would be a safe spot to put them.
Right.
these bridges are really crippling the amphibian movement. I think that's a part of the map design, why it works. They're strong, but they're not too strong. Because the bridges do count as land tiles, so the amphibians won't get the crit from those tiles. And I think that's an important part of keeping amphibians relatively...
It makes it so they can't speed down the rivers too.
I think the biggest harm to them is more the movement than the attack.
Yeah.
They can only move 2 bridge tiles at a time, so like 1 river space, 2 bridge tiles. So it really, really slows them down.
Okay, Ash, with the 2,250 gold this turn.
He's got a lot of money.
He's gotta spend it on
Right.
something, right?
It really does.
If he just keeps
I mean, I guess
stockpiling
he
it.
could just nod, but
Yeah, I think he'll probably take a deep think here to try and decide what exactly he wants to tech to. Because he does have, I mean, somewhat of an advantage here because of his deep pockets. Red Halo can't immediately hyper counter everything he buys. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Blue Knight.
Okay, Ash actually does need to get an anti-air unit, so
Yeah,
I'm sure
that is
he's going
true.
to buy a mage, almost definitely.
it would be...
Can he afford a Balloon, a Trib, and a Mage?
Probably.
Balloon is
Definitely.
500,
If he
right?
can, yeah. Because that's
Yeah, he can
900,
afford-
900, 18. Yeah, he has
He
plenty.
can afford a Balloon, a Trib, and a Mage.
And leftover for Pike, his favorite unit.
Well,
Well, he wouldn't be able to buy a Pike.
yeah,
He wouldn't have,
no rack.
You're
he would
right,
not have
yeah.
enough left over to buy another amphibian, I think, is the case, though.
He would.
He would. You're right. So he can buy that combination and also buy the amphibian.
That's just so much money
It is.
to have. I don't think I've ever seen my cash count get that high.
Except with my campaign, yeah.
But if he was going to do that, it would have made sense to buy the balloon earlier, so that I could have started putting in work. I think.
I don't think it's really a big deal, because what is he losing in not having the balloon? The forward pikes are only taking 2 turns. There's no back pikes right now that aren't... Well, actually, even if... He's been moving the back pikes with the barges, so they're really not losing anything right now.
True, yeah. Which does seem to be taking a long think on this turn.
I think this might be a trend between both of them, as these are really... They haven't lost any units yet, so...
Yeah,
just they have a whole bunch in the middle, it's gonna get messy.
The position is very dynamic at this point, and it's about to become very sharp as the chess turn. There is a 10-minute timer, but the position is about to become very sharp, which in chess terms means you've got to make the correct moves, or you will take a lot of disadvantage. So I think we're going to see both players start thinking a lot about exactly how they want to position their pieces here.
If I had to take a guess, I would guess Ash is considering how best to attack that central village right now, and also how best to defend his southwest front, which is very vulnerable. So he does have the central pike mass. So he would be okay if he could take center and give up, say, maybe 1 southwest village. So I guess he's thinking about how best to do that right now. Any other good options for him?
I don't think it's possible for him to take the village and keep his amphibian. So really for him it's going to be, do I want to remove this village and lose this amphibian, and maybe position my pieces so that he can't take the village back. But in that case, he's going to need a much closer anti-air unit. Because that harpy is close enough that it's very threatening, and a mage can't get there fast enough really for that harpy to kind of reinforce that position enough that he can take the village back.
Right. It is worth noting that amphibians do very good damage to mages with the crit. I believe it's like almost something like a one-hit KO.
I think you are correct.
A great counter. Okay. Ash decides to attack in the southwest. I think he's gonna lose that sword that attacked. Amphibians look like they're gonna try to reinforce the south, where
that's
Ash...
strange to me.
I think it's worth noting that the amphibians are actually a pretty good threat against the commander on the right, if the harpy's supporting them so nothing can pick them off.
Right.
Let's build a mage. So he goes with a mage instead of a witch, which I think is very,
might build a
very
too.
Ash.
I mean, it's possible, but I think if I'm I might just go straight for the dragon here, or a wagon, or not a wagon. I mean a balloon.
Right now, maybe he's just, got us all playing guessing games. He'll just build, an out of left field warship, and we'll all be full.
Well, yeah, to defend that stronghold, right?
Right.
Okay, wait.
Not taking this.
He's not doing it.
Hot take.
Maybe just a harpy even.
If he doesn't buy a balloon, he's not buying anything. I'm gonna bet on that.
Oh, something that we missed last turn is Red did move his Aquanaut onto the South River instead of the North River. So that probably does mean Red is intending to
he built a
reinforce the
dragon.
Oh, wow.
Well, I guess I ate my words.
Ash built an air unit. Somebody buy a lottery ticket. Okay, that dragon does exert a lot of pressure right now on the center because Red has no anti-air.
I figure his real only option is to buy a witch. I don't think he can get a mage safely to cover enough.
So the problem with that is that Ash already has the mage counter to the witch. So the mage up there will be able to zone out the witch while the dragon goes wild. Red will have to take a very backward position right now.
I mean, taking the witch hit on the dragon is not a bad way to sack a witch, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So I don't think it leaves him with impunity. It would be more of a defensive choice than anything, I think. Having a witch would cover all your troops, and it would be relatively safe because the dragon can't hit it.
Okay. So it does look like Red managed to win the southwest fight. Those amphibians are not going to be able to reinforce that. I'm not sure whether Red can take the city. It doesn't look like enough on his next turn. A 4 health and a 9 health sword won't be able to reliably take the city anyway.
No, I think what Ash might be thinking of doing is bringing his dragon all the way down.
Oh, that's interesting.
I feel like it'd be a waste of it, honestly.
Yeah, it seems like a
they
waste of
can't
dragon.
do too much on their own.
They can chase the knight away is the big thing. They can chase that out of position.
I think the big threat right now is on Emmerich, because if he doesn't really back off, he's at risk of getting surrounded right now.
Right. Yeah, that dragon deals great damage to commanders. 35 base damage, which means say about 40 with luck due to the planes. So that dragon will deal like an expected 36 damage to Emmerich. And then Mercia can follow up with an expected 5 or like 40 damage. So Emmerich could potentially go to very low health next turn if it doesn't do something.
He has to be very careful to stay off the river too.
One thing I don't really know, do bridges count as roads for a dragon crit?
I'm pretty sure they do not. And
They do
since
not.
roads are pretty much non-existent, the dragon crit probably won't come into play too much.
Right.
Okay, I don't know if this is a thing on this map. It might be worth looking at what villages are on roads, because dragons do double damage to those, which means they get the 1-hit KO.
Unfortunately, I don't believe there's a way to check, actually.
You can right-click the village, and if it's on a road in the background, then it's on a road.
Doesn't seem like many, if any, are.
So it looks like the two on the sides, the northeastern pair and the southwestern pair are on roads. The rest are not. Yeah, so that's probably not going to be much of a factor at the moment.
Although he could pick those two cities on the right and then threaten the stronghold if Red doesn't respond properly.
I do like that Red is using his heartbeat aggressively here, because he has a couple of turns before that mage can really do anything. So he really wants to make sure that he can secure that southwest village in the mid.
That harpy is basically invulnerable right now. There's
Right.
nothing that threatens it. I am interested in how Red is planning to deal with this dragon by Ash.
I
Go
think
for a mage. That might be a bit slow. I don't know.
it might actually just build another harpy.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, build another
The
harpy.
only problem is, I mean, it does threaten out the dragon to an extent, but I think it wouldn't help in the long run because Ash is going to have mages to threaten them, and if they won't be able to kill the dragon for sure, even with 2 of them.
So, really, what is Red planning to do about this pike mass by Ash slowly creeping up on this position? We'll see an easy way out for Red.
I think
Spear
what
push seemed
what Red's planning to do is to move some of his forces over to the southwest. As you can see at the position of his amphibians, is that he definitely wants to move over there. And his pike there is the same way. It's moved to the southwest to kind of move towards the western half. So really the question is, I think for me, is whether Ash can position his units to take advantage of that. Because right now, that northeast side of the map is completely open for Ash, but he's not really taking any sort of advantage of that.
I think, you know, he's just sticking with his usual style. Slow and steady, he'll just push in and overwhelm everything.
Yeah,
He has a
with
decent
spears.
chunk of units.
I mean, he doesn't really have an advantage, though, as far as units go.
He doesn't need to have one necessarily, just because for the most part, he has spears to Red's mostly swords.
But Emmerich is going to get his groove first.
This is true. I'm not
That's
saying
true.
it's won by any means. I'm just saying he doesn't have a bad position in any regard.
Right.
No need to rush because, you know, the income and
I believe Emmerich gets his groove at the end of the turn, or is it 2 more turns?
it should be at the end of that's 80, so 2 more turns.
Yeah.
Thought it was 90%.
What do you guys think about possible archer build by Red in the next couple turns to try to fend off that spear mass? Because it is powerful, but it is slow and vulnerable to, you know, archer fire. Especially if
It wouldn't be the
I don't
worst.
think it's a terrible idea, especially because archers absolutely devastate amphibians.
I think the biggest problems with it are mostly the buy-in cost versus other units he could be fielding, since he has a lot of things he needs right now.
Right.
And also just... I don't know. It would be good against the spears for sure, but I don't know, with dragons in the air, anti-air is a little bit of a concern right now.
Yeah, to say the least.
Alright, so Forgotten Waterways is one of our newer maps in the map pool. It's been put together by the map committee of Groove of War. This particular map was made by Exmo5. He has another map in the pool, Baldur's Bane. These 5 maps that we've got in the Stronghold series right now are just part of the overall map pool from the Groove of War laddered maps. We are currently going through testing through another round of maps to add to the map pool. If you are interested in making maps or in getting a few maps for maps that you would like to play, please join the Groove of War Discord and check out our competitive map building section. There's some resources in there that we've taken the time to put together for new map builders and map builders returning from Advance Wars. And we hope to see you there.
Exmo really did a really good job on his maps, honestly.
Yeah.
He's sort of one of the biggest in-house Advanced Wars maps creators, and he's been at it for a long time.
He has.
Years.
Longer than even me.
A lot of the current ladder maps, we're still kind of experimenting with some stuff that's different between Groove Wars, or Wargroove, and Advance Wars, particularly with FT8 counters, but also with different gameplay mechanics like you see on this map, with the rivers and amphibians, which was totally different from Advance Wars. There's no similar unit.
Right.
It's interesting how a lot of units are similar, but also not.
Right, especially with Spearmen.
Right, yeah.
Another thing to think about is costs compared to each unit, even the ones that are like very similar in function, like cavalry, are different, but also things like harpies are a lot cheaper, but a lot less effective in general. And then
Trebuchet's definitely got a major buff from Advance Wars, relatively speaking. Because
yeah, they do so much
Everybody
damage.
is grid.
Hey, well,
Mages are really nice at 400 compared to like double the price in Advanced Wars. Plus they have their utility, their anti-air, their crits, being
Right.
able to walk on mountains, good movement for the game, all good things.
and they have a heal.
Yeah, they actually do decent damage against things besides infantry and air too.
Yeah, it's really kind of odd. They're one of the stronger all-around units just because they have so much utility, and even though they don't have the greatest defense value, their attack value against everything is really good.
Something you can say about most Wargroove units, really.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of units seem to have a little bit of rock attack defense as an issue. But I mean, mages on first strike hit a lot of things really, really hard.
Do you think Ash is thinking about doing right now?
I think
What's his plan for it?
Ash is weighing in how he wants to position Marcia, that sword and those pikes that he's got in sort of the center right now, because he has to be very careful about not getting first strike, especially with the existence of that harpy, because if he loses his unit advantage, it's going to be real tough for him to retake it from Emmerich.
Yeah, and Emmerich does have potential groove coming up, not on the next turn, but
Yeah, groove the turn after next.
subsequent turn. These units will have a lot of staying power. We also should note that it affects air units as well. So every single plains tile in the center will become a mountain for Emmerich, which is
Right.
really good.
It's so good.
Even those river tiles wouldn't be like, super terrible to stand on, they'd just be plains, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's +3, so that's not bad. Actually no, roads. They would be roads at -2.
Will they be plains?
Right.
Still, it gives him a lot of mobility in the middle, and he doesn't sound like Ash has any archers or indirects at the moment, so he might be hard-pressed to snipe the crystal.
Yeah, one of the great things about Emmerich's Groove, the Elder Shield, is that it lasts. It lasts multiple turns, and you can heal the Elder Shield, yeah. And you can heal
Good
it
thing.
if you really want.
One of the strongest things I think about it is Emmerich is relatively safe to fight in the confines of his aura,
Right.
and that means that he can get another charge before his groove's even done.
Right.
Absolutely. That's very true.
You could get multiple crystals at the same time.
The overlap doesn't affect anything, but having one on hand just right after another can really be strong to keep the advantage.
Big question for Ash here for me is how is he going to use this dragon? Because he can keep it middle, but it won't be kind of paying off on his investment that he made with keeping that money for so long. So for me, I think he really needs to decide between taking the dragon to the right and threatening those villages, or taking it down south and pushing away those swords in that night.
I feel like he'd probably be better off just taking the economy at the moment, just because I don't really see it being too hard to take the left back at the moment. Red's so concentrated in the middle, and
Okay, it does look like
sort of
Ash goes to the right. So, to threaten the two villages in the northeast. Red could counter that with a witch build, since Ash is now probably gonna have to separate his dragon from the rest of his army.
I think he's going to build a witch.
And Red does have the money for a witch, so it's likely, I think, that that's what we'll see out of him next turn.
I think he really just has to build a witch out of necessity, because it's the only thing that can really chase the dragon around at all.
it covers a
Otherwise-
lot of area and keeps the dragon out. I think it's really one of his better options at the moment.
Exactly.
Okay, so Ash pulls back from the southwest. It's just giving up
Yeah.
that southwest city.
He was really
It won't
threatened by those, by the knight down there. And the witch from Ash, from that tower, I actually like that by a lot. Because now the harpy can't really take advantage like it could.
Oh, Ash builds a witch. Oh, another air unit.
That harpy's pretty much put on defensive duty at this point.
Right.
One thing I do have to say about the harpy, I mean, it's an air unit, but it's not super good against most of the ground units. It does reasonable damage to swordsmen and knights, but notably damage against pikemen for the cost. So
They can do okay against archers, I suppose, but not many people field them.
So against Ash's sort of pike wall here, this Harpy is going to have a hard time proving its worth, so to speak.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's my biggest problem with Harpies, is just how quickly they're invalidated.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I was thinking that building a witch first might be better. Because witches on this map are more than an AA counter because of the architecture of the map. You're always going to have a big clumped units in the center. And being able to get an alpha big hex makes a first strike incredibly strong.
Right. But we do have to note that it's Mercia we're facing. That's probably not such a great idea against Mercia. But she can just heal everything up again.
Honestly, the fact that she's going to have her groove soon makes, I think, Ash's army a lot more threatening than it actually looks.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So how is Red going to deal with this pike wall is the problem that he has to solve right now. Won't do much against pikes. The commander will do okay against pikes, but there's just so many of them.
Yeah, I think that's something that people overlook a lot. Commanders do great against pikes, sure, but like you can't send them into pikes. You just can't. They're going to get surrounded and killed too easily. So at any amount of numbers beyond like 2, you can't do it.
Right, you can't just send your commander charging into a pike wall like storryeater did last game. But you could use the commander defensively as sort of a keystone piece to, block their advance.
One thing I will say about the Harpy is he could maybe thread it into his defenses, like out of range of the witch,
Right.
so that it's part of his wall.
Actually can't be touched by any of the ground units, so it could be a great just to keep spot occupied and prevent attacking space.
I think
this
that's
has to be
mostly how we're
careful.
going to see it used. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He just needs to be careful because there's a witch and the mage, and I believe both of them get a one-shot, right?
That's correct.
So that'd be pretty hard to do at this point.
Fair, the witch will not get a one-shot if the Harpy is next to another witch, or one of Red's witches, which is possible.
That is true, although I'm not sure if he'll think about that, because I don't think a lot of people think about that strange crit.
Okay. That Red's Aquanauts on the river will be able to hold off any spear push down the right side. So it's mainly about try to push down the left side where his own Aquanauts are ready to support him. I really have to say again, Red would really like an archer at this point just to hold off that encroaching spear mass. Even one archer is like a significant threat versus spear mass because it can basically cripple one spear every turn if it doesn't move.
As long as Ash doesn't get a treb, that's honestly a good idea.
So yeah, as long as you can keep the archers safe, it will generate a lot of value for you. And honestly, on this map, I don't envision that being too difficult. The front near the base has great terrain for you to set up a defensive front. Like between this village next to the central river and that tower, there's just 5 tiles of space there where you could set up a wall, and Ash wouldn't be able to break it without indirect units.
Honestly, I'm surprised neither of them has put an Aquanaut in range of the middle tiles, just because that could help in a potential pushing situation.
Right. I think the reason that Ash had backed his amphibians up, though, is because of the positioning the knight was at before. I think because it's more open now because the knight has moved completely to the bottom left side. That we'll see his Aquanauts move into the middle now.
Right. But one interesting counter to amphibians possibly is dogs, right? Because hit KO the amphibian on the river, and they do respectable damage even without the crit, and they're cost efficient too. So that might be one way that Raid can try to deal with amphibians, who will otherwise be a constant annoyance, just threatening to go down the river and attack him there.
I think having just the Harpy and the Knight there is an okay counter.
I mean, there's always the Witch to worry about, though.
Yeah, but it's worth noting that Red, he's still on this track with his amphibians over to the left side of the map.
I think if he wanted to do that, he should have bought a balloon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he hasn't really been able to afford it so far.
Yeah,
I think because of that Knight, which has really just been dead money as far as positioning goes. It's gonna take those villages, but whether or not it's worth it is really kind of up for grabs at this point. We'll have to see how it plays out.
If he can hold those villages, I would say it's worth it.
Yeah.
Just because income has been an issue this whole game for him.
You'll be able to hold the southwesternmost village. Not too sure about that.
Yeah, I think the southwestern village he definitely holds. But the one in between there that's nearest the river, south of the Stronghold, is the one that's really questionable.
I think Red will be able to, say, neutralize it. He won't be able to cap it and hold it, but he'll deny the income to Ash.
I think one of the benefits of taking out Southwest is that it'll kind of force Ash to move some of his forces at least to the western half of the map, because his stronghold is up there. I mean, it's vulnerable, so he has to keep enough units there to make sure that he's not going to get back into.
Honestly, it's not terribly vulnerable as long as those Aquanauts are there. With
Right.
4 of them, even if some of them have to take land hits, that Knight's not getting far.
All right.
I just spotted something. This Knight could potentially go after those 2 cities near the stronghold, and the Aquanauts may not be in position to punish that very heavily.
Right, that's very true.
That could be an interesting use of the Knight, especially because I don't think he can really do too much about it other than shuffling over and recapping them.
Right, I think Ash probably has to move the dragon back.
Then again, though, he is barging in like 2 pikes every other turn. He could just drop them right there.
Right, that's very true.
That's true, yeah. But I don't know if Ash doesn't notice this, because he has been barging in his pikes to the center, not the side.
I mean, yeah. I'm just saying it wouldn't be a very long-term neutralization of the cities.
Okay, so Red has mostly spent his money. Imagine he's just thinking what to do with the few units he has left to move. What do you guys think about this matchup in general? Versus Emery, who has the favorable, or who's favored?
I think it's really kind of up in the air because there's not really any tech unit that can take hold of the fields.
I want to say it's Mercia because she can neutralize and retaliate on Emmerich Groove, but I really think it is highly dependent on how they're used.
Right, I think because of the positioning on the map that Mercia definitely has the advantage at this point. Like, Emmerich has that wall, but he can't really take the middle. I mean, he doesn't have any sort of forward attacking position, and Mercia has a way more... Like, if you look at the way the units are positioned, Mercia has a way easier time getting into the center and defending herself than Emmerich does on the back foot here. Now, Emmerich can begin to make his units kind of move forward and take a closer position to the middle, but he has to be really careful not to get into first strike position of Mercia, because if Mercia can get a first strike off, with a solid amount of her troops, she can get the heal groove, which she'll have the next turn.
Right.
And Emmerich will be in a really tough spot.
So Mercia can come back basically, but Emmerich has a much harder time.
Right. Mercia has the comeback mechanic with the heal groove, but Emmerich just has the first strike advantage. And because he doesn't have any sort of advantage in troops, it's going to be real tough for him to use that.
Okay, so Ash does decide to go for
Brace
don't
yourself.
know if I like
Mercia.
that.
Ash has determined that there's no threat to Mercia. Not possible to kill her if he plays this right, and also just be able to heal up whenever she wants, if she has to, because of her groove. So
Yeah, I don't like that. I think that she's going to take damage for free from the Harpy because I think Emmerich can come down now because of the way that Mercia is positioned and move next to the village and Elder Shield to the south, and the Harpy will be safe from the Witch because it'll get the 3 defense from the Elder Shield. So the Witch will not be able to one-shot it.
Does
oh, but
that save
there's
it
a
from a
mage there
one-shot?
too.
I
believe
think
it does.
at this point, there is the mage in range, but honestly, Mercia can only really get hit from one direction. Like, I don't think that damage is really all that detrimental to her when she has her groove now. So she's free to threaten with the groove push.
I mean, it's one thing if it's like massive damage, like maybe 50-60%, but this is probably just going to be maybe 20% chip damage, and you know, commanders do regenerate 5 health at the start, or 5% at the start of their turn. So I think being at 80% won't hinder her too much. And also now Ash has the flexibility of using his groove on the next turn if he has to.
Not to mention this is denying income as well.
Right.
Okay. So I imagine Ash is now just want to best support Mercia with his pike wall.
I'm
Interesting.
just going to bring all of those Aquanauts to the bottom half of the map now.
That's what he's gonna do. Okay, I have to question the decision to expose
Yeah.
those Aquanauts right there.
I do too. I think
That
he's going to
seems like a
lose.
questionable
Yeah,
well,
I think he's
wait.
going to lose a
You
good
know what?
deal of those.
You know what? I think I see what he's doing here.
He's trying.
He's exposing them to hits to try and bait with Mercia's groove,
Oh, I
and I
see.
believe they'll survive a hit apiece. And
Right.
then there's the third one blocking, which prevents the Harpy from just swinging around.
Makes sense.
If Red commits to that, he probably just doesn't get anything and loses units.
I have to consider that on Emmerich's groove, the mage will be able to. Oh, interesting. He swung the dragon back. Okay, anyway, on Emmerich's groove, the mage will start getting crits. So the mage will be able to one-hit KO something.
That is true if he actually wants to push in that hard. I'm not sure if it's worth it though, because even if he got rid of all those Aquanauts, there's still the spears in range, still the mage in range, still the dragon in range, still the witch in range, still another couple of Aquanauts, and Mercia's not going to take too much damage.
Really, it really depends on what Ash plans to do for the rest of this turn.
Feel like he might just inch everything out.
2. Mage is safely is on a river, but safely out of attack range of anything important, so that's fine. Ash is just playing this very safe, very solidly, in keeping with his style. To find fault with any of Ash's moves. So far they're working very well.
That brick's going to be hard to pick anything out of, if not impossible, and even if you bother, you just lose the units to the groove next turn.
Right.
So, he's getting a good position, he'll probably attack in the next turn.
You do have to consider that this is getting quite close to Red's base, to Red's forward racks. So Red will have the faster reinforcements if it does become a battle around the south.
They are faster, but at the same time, they are a little bit slow. In spite of its proximity to the fight, it's still 2-turn, 3-turn reinforced.
Yeah. Example, Red could build, say, a ballista, and it would immediately cover everything in range.
That
'Cause
is
it's
true. He could go for a siege unit just to cover this area, and then maybe pick it up with the blue.
Yeah, like a couple of turns down the road. Possible play. What is Ash going to do with the witch, really?
He's just going to put it in the center position so that he can react to anything that Red Halo's Witch does.
Yep. That's basically what he did. Okay, so... taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, I think is trying to push in center. Red is definitely going to get this southwest city on this turn.
I think Red's best option at this point would be maybe to take the sides.
Yeah.
Just because he can't really fight into this middle comp too easily. Ash has all his, you know,
Right.
Ash is putting everything into the middle. He doesn't have anything on the sides at all. And on top of that, he could potentially either threaten the strongholds or just get a positional and income advantage, just keeping the sides.
So far,
Maybe get a pincer attack of sorts off. Take the 2 villages at the top.
income-wise, it seems pretty even so far. At about the same income.
Yeah, it's been back and forth with control of these middle villages, but I think right now Red Halo's getting control of that southwestern half, so we'll see it kind of taper off.
Ash did have an income lead for a few turns, and he did bank that money, so in the end it did end up helping him a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of the story of this middle area is the amount of turns that Ash just spent making pikes and making so much bank at home, and then finally, getting off with the dragon.
Right.
Honestly, just because of how many pikes are still on the map, it's not like he was punished for it either. It's going to hurt when they eventually, a lot of them are formed up at this point or are in threatening positions.
Ash actually has changed his strategy somewhat. He did not go for any trebuchets on this map, which I think is the right call, or at least a valid decision. Yeah. Mix it up.
Personally, I think his position would be pretty solidified if he'd bothered to balloon treb at some point, like
could even
in the last several turns.
I don't think he can afford to actually do balloon treb though, and keep up his pipeline and kind of counter out Red Halo's air is the issue.
Right.
He could have gotten a balloon, gotten some pikes, banked some money, and then bought a treb next turn, and probably still bought another pike.
Ash did decide to go for this dragon and witch combo instead of a balloon and a treb. Dragon and witch is significantly more expensive than a balloon and treb. Those Aquanauts, slowly encroaching on Red's space, are starting to exert some significant pressure on Red's position. We also have to consider the threat of Witch Hex by Ash. Easy to overlook, but does give some important kills sometimes. The main question for me is whether Red Halo will attempt to use his groove defensively on this turn to solidify his defensive formation.
That's what I was just thinking about, is whether Emmerich will move down southeast of that neutral village and just plop the groove down where that pikeman south of that is currently, just to kind of make that a big defensive area.
Right.
I feel like if he lets himself get hit by a first strike, it will end badly for him even on higher terrain.
Yeah, I think
there's
that's
just so many units right there, and his force is a little spread out to help.
No, I could see it working. I mean, Mercia's groove does complicate things, but on the other hand, Emmerich will have that terrain advantage for like the next 5 turns, assuming that Crystal stays safe, which it might not, to be fair. Like the most important thing for me, I guess, is that the crystal would deny a lot of important one-hit KOs. Like the dragon will no longer one-hit KO even a pikeman on a mountain, right? So Emmerich does use this groove. Every plane here is a mountain. And it applies to air units too.
I think it's worth noting that Ash's position is kind of looks more threatening than it actually is. Because of those 4 amphibians, you have to remember that while amphibians are very threatening on the river, it's because they have a 2x crit. Their base damage is not very good.
Right.
So because he can't get
at the same
off,
time, there's still extra hits. They still do, you know, decent chip. They're still ranged. They're not going to take any damage back.
Right.
And he still has the dragon, the witch, and his commander right there.
Right.
So I think that's still a threatening position, especially because the Aquanauts are unlikely to die in one singular hit from anything, and they might live to get healed.
Yeah, I think the main way that the Aquanauts are sort of pressuring Red right now is that they can deal chip damage from 2 spaces away. Firstly, without taking return damage, and secondly, without taking out important attacking space. So if you hit it from 2 spaces away, you can still put a unit right next to it and get the KO or something like that. That's really stopping Red from using this village as a defensive anchor point right now, so to speak. Imagine if he didn't have those Aquanauts there, and then Red could just, say, form up in a rectangular shape with this village as the corner point, and that would be difficult to break, especially if Emmerich uses groove.
And on the other hand, while offensively they lose some value, defensively speaking, they have amazing value, and they're keeping Red from attacking in on anyone.
Absolutely.
Right.
So I don't think it's really a smart idea to discount them in this formation as threats.
I think Red should try for an archer at some point. He really needs something to deal with this. At least one good ranged unit that can like threaten the mass of stuff.
Well, like you were saying earlier, just building a treb on that pile of bones next to the racks is not a bad
Right.
build.
Or a ballista.
A ballista might actually be better.
Yeah, so if he does go for the ballista build, I think Ash should have a very difficult time attacking into that, considering that the Aquanauts will do great defensive work along the river, and no doubt it's close to his base. Red can reinforce quickly with pikes.
At the same time, the Treb does threaten the commander out, and that might be more valuable right now. Especially because it still covers a space ahead of all his units right now, even if it was just kept at the base.
Oh, he does use his groove. Bad position. I
don't like that position.
Either. I feel like this is too backward to really be of any.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Red
I mean-
goes for a trap.
I mean, he's not losing anything, but I think if he just gives up the entire center to Ash, not just the villages, but the area in the middle with the flowers and the statue, if he gives that up, he's giving up complete tempo control to Ash, and it'll just snowball.
Right, now Ash will have the initiative, right?
I think his play here would be defend in the middle and take the sides. Because
That is
taking the sides means an income advantage even in the end of losing the middle. And Ash will be slow to push in.
So Red, actually, I'm interested to know what Red's plan is for the end game. How is Red planning to mop up all the remaining spears, right? Because Ash is just going full on production with the spears, just pumping them out every turn. So what is Red's plan to deal with this in the end game? Because it's not going to go away anytime soon. I'd be interested to know.
I
I
think
don't know what he does here.
I think the top 2 cities on the top of the map of Ashes are fairly vulnerable. I think he can easily pick that city that's just above on the roads on the bottom left. I think he could possibly bleed the income and then try and press that advantage.
Right, but that's like a macro level strategy, right? Like, what I want to know is how Rit plans to deal with the pikes.
I honestly think that is how he deals with the pikes. Just kind of like you deal with mechs in Advanced Wars. You go do something else.
Right, yeah, okay. That makes sense.
I think if he takes the income elsewhere, he forces Ash to respond, split up his forces, make them more manageable.
Maybe? Yeah.
At best, it keeps two smaller fronts. At worst, it could actually do some damage to his income, and you might be able to make an advantage out of that.
Maybe, yeah. Oh.
I personally do not like just running out of the middle like this.
I don't really like it either, but it's hard to
I don't
punish.
think he has much choice, really.
Yeah.
I don't see any way he could keep the middle and not take a horrible trade for it.
You're right, but I do think that Red did not have to take such a backward defensive position. Like, he could have been slightly more ambitious with his positioning.
Yeah.
And maybe have the crystal.
That's my biggest problem. That's my biggest problem with it. Because
Well, you
even though
could've-
the idea... Oh, sorry. But
I think this is one of the only ways he keeps Emmerich totally safe while the crystal doesn't get destroyed immediately.
But, well, of course, but he could have.
I think he probably should have put it where the infantry is, on the to the left of Emmerich, the
Yeah.
crystal. That would
Okay, that's
probably made this a lot better, but
I like that position.
that I
a
don't
lot
really
more.
think that's too much worse than it could have been.
Like, look at this crystal positioning and compare it to the position one tile to the left, one tile up. The position one tile to the left, one tile up covers a lot more key squares. There's all these plains in the middle that suddenly become mountains, and more importantly, give his mate allow him to take a strong defensive position there. This position on the forest is just carving a lot of useless tiles in the back that don't do anything.
I think what his idea was a lot of his units are standing on river right now, and that at least makes it positive terrain, if not something quite as useful as a mountain.
Alright, we'll agree to disagree, I guess.
I mean, I do agree with you. It probably would have been better on the left. I'm just saying, I can see where his thinking is.
Ah, okay. Yeah. The thing about this position on the forest is it now takes up an important deployment spot. Because
That
assuming that
is-
you keep the trap there.
yeah.
Oh, that is very true. That will hurt him a lot, honestly, because that's a very good deployment tile off of that barracks.
Like, yeah. So assuming that Red wants to keep the trap there to defend, he's gonna have to produce racks, and that'll make his stuff take 1 to 2 turns longer to get to the middle where they are needed.
I think Red just played this a little bit too timidly.
The early days, I guess. We'll see. I mean, one unit so far, right? Like the singular sword in the southwest that got killed, and Red has lost.
I'm not entirely sure there's really any ways he could have played differently, except maybe pushing in more aggressively on the sides. At least with the unit comp he decided to field.
Yeah, with this unit comp, which is why I think Red should have gone for an archer earlier on. Now looking at this position, the job of holding the center much easier without having to give up so much ground.
I think making a witch instead of a harpy in the beginning would have been better too.
Think he might not have expected Ash to make air.
That's very true. Yeah. I mean, it's very backward thinking of me to say that, but it's very true. I would not have expected Ash to just make the dragon.
I didn't expect that. Okay. What do you guys think about potentially, multiple witches, multiple hexing, and that being a way to deal with the central spear clump?
I think that right now, Red Halo has to give serious thought to that, because this dragon and the mage is making it so that the harpy can't threaten the left side. Red Halo would have to move a significant chunk of his line to the left in order to get any advantage over there. He's going to have to run away with his knight. He might even lose it.
Yeah, Ash is taking up great defensive position versus this village. So one thing interesting is whether Ash will cap this neutral village in the center. I don't think he will, because that would give Emmerich like free charge towards his next
There's
crystal.
no way I'm
He does cap it.
for that, honestly. I think it's fine to...
He does cap
I think
it.
it's cap it. I think capping it's fine.
If nothing else, like, it might go neutral, but he'll probably lose a unit for it. I don't see it being an issue.
Okay. Interesting. Ash has diverted, say, 3 out of 4 Aquanauts to the left. I think Red can consider making a central push here, because he does have
I think
that.
he can too. I think if nothing else, just because of the position of that swordsman, he should at least pick it off, just to try and keep the unit count small and try and bait Ash into overextending.
I mean, is it really safe to do that? Because he moved the Aquanauts to the left, not terribly far. I think at least 2 of them are in range, if not 3.
Just like, okay, there are like maybe 2 in range.
Plus the dragon.
We'll have to wait what. So Ash is committing pretty heavily to taking the side, which suggests.
Yeah, I think if that was Red Halo, I definitely am gonna try and push in mid here. Which really, the big problem is that he uses Groove, and he really didn't need to.
Really is a killer, because Red uses Groove defensively. Now he doesn't have the flexibility of using it to support in his offensive push.
And I think that may end up killing Red here, because this is a position where he at least has the ability to maybe push in mid, or at least try to get some position back. But because of the loss of the Groove, he doesn't have any way to equalize it all with Mercia. So Mercia's definitely going to have the advantage. And so Red won't be able to push in at all.
Right.
He can try and pick off units, the swordsman and the little river tile there in particular. Try and just make it so that Ash loses units near the front line to kind of get a defensive advantage. But I think if Ash plays carefully here in the long run, he's going to be able to push in and take control of the rest of the map.
This is starting to look pretty bad.
For Ash, but kind of bad for Red.
I think it looks really bad for Red.
I didn't notice Red is actually colored red.
Go figure.
Dragon on the left is actually pretty threatening to that knight over there.
Yeah, I don't think Red can do anything about that. His mage is too far out of position. I mean, he's got the harpy to get one attack on the dragon, but it's going to instantly die to the witch or the mage.
The mage could barely get into position to defend the knight on that turn, but I think
the issue is that the amphibian will just smash the mage.
Or actually no, the mage could move 2 down, 2 left, and guard the knight, which moves 3 to the right.
I don't know.
It's definitely not ideal, but Ash wouldn't be able to immediately take advantage. And these 2 swordsmen are definitely dead.
Yeah, they are so dead.
Well, no, never mind. There's the... I was gonna say he could potentially use the dragon on the front if he did that, but the witch is still covering it, so potentially he could do that with his mage.
So I think the main problem for Red now is how is he gonna use this trap that he built? Because now it's just stuck there, right? Like Ash is not going
Yeah,
to
it
attack.
is stuck. He doesn't have a balloon to reposition it.
Right.
His best bet would be to buy a balloon and float it over now.
The problem with that is, though, is that I think if I'm Ash right here, I want to buy another Witch to get my first strike to be even stronger. And just kind of take control of the air. Because if Red Halo's only option is to build the balloon here, if Ash builds another Witch, he's eventually going to be able to get the Witch advantage and push Red Halo in. Because Red just doesn't have enough units. But Ash is thinking pretty deep about what he actually wants to buy, other than the pikemen at the back line.
He's thinking about where to position this singular Aquanaut on the front.
No, he's thinking about his other racks in his tower.
Yeah,
And his port, really.
I don't know. We might see that warship after all.
Yeah, he's banking up. Oh, well, he is banking up
Just
lots
sail
of
it
cash.
right up the river.
Number 2 is the question. Well, probably not.
You can't actually sail warships up the river.
I was joking. I should have said joking.
So what is Ash going to build? I'm gonna guess he builds just an Aquanaut and a pike.
After all this deliberation, I almost wouldn't be surprised.
He may go for an archer. From this.
I don't think I'll see an archer. I think
we'll see an
I don't know what I
Aquanaut, a
think.
pike, and a witch.
something like that. Yeah.
Would approve of an archer build from this front ranks. Once the position gets so clustered up like this, you really do need like some ranged units to soften up that front. I have to say, great play of the dragon by Ash so far. I mean, he's been really maximizing its mobility. First, it tried to threaten on the left, force out a witch, then it went back to the other side, threatened this small clump of units down here that now can't escape. Oh, he builds a second witch. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
With the lottery.
I'm the best.
Witch, not maybe.
Oh, pike, witch, and Aquanaut.
Oh, no,
is-
not.
Oh,
He
no,
didn't build the Aquanaut, no.
because he has
Might
built
be
one.
banking for something.
He has built one every turn.
He
So
might
this
build
makes me
another dragon next turn, that might be the thought. That's not a bad thought.
No, this makes me think that he's finally gonna go for the balloon trap play. Because it actually is like quite justified of him to do that next turn, considering how
Yeah, at this point he could slowly just pick everything off, and
Absolutely.
Red's Treb is not in a position to react to that very well.
Right.
and this dragon will just continue to be a constant annoyance for Red, threatening various units, forcing you to play reactively. Expensive unit, but it's a great harasser.
I think the big stories of this game so far is that Ash got the advantage in unit count. Well, sort of. And the frontline effective units he has, because of him building so many pikemen early and banking so much money. And because he did that, he has that dragon to support both sides of his flanks, which makes it so Red can't really push in with that knight swordsman combo as he's looking, or anything from the other right side if he attempted it. So Red's got a lot of dead money and dead position floating around, while as Ash's position has remained fairly dynamic. Interesting that Red went for killing that village. It looks like Red might try and do some damage here.
So, how long do you think it'll be before one of them decides to push in at this rate?
Well, I
feel
mean,
like Ash probably
Red is
could've-
looking like he's doing it right now.
I don't know. If he does, I feel like he just loses those 4 spears for nothing, really.
I think we're getting to the kind of position where Ash might be able to move in, get the groove off, and retain an advantage big enough. Because a huge issue for Red right now is that those units in the bottom left are going to die. And when that happens, he's going to lose complete control over that side of the map.
In
And-
practice,
Go ahead.
Red has a higher unit count, but in theory, Ash
Right.
will have a higher unit count no matter what happens.
Absolutely. It's because Ash's
What is it?
position, his position is so dynamic that he can move his units to effective spots much easier than Red can.
Right.
Red's units are so cramped up around this river, they don't have a lot of tiles to move to. His amount of effective tile space is smaller. In addition, he's got 4 dead units, or 5 dead units pretty much. The 1 swordsman in the top right, the Aquanaut in the middle right, and the 2 swordsmen in the knight in the bottom left. Those are pretty much totally useless.
Okay, so it looks like Red is going for the play I talked about, which is move the knight 3 spaces to the right and the mage 2 left, 2 down, and that'll guard the knight with the mage from the dragon. What did Red just do here? Remove this harpy, which will be attackable by the witch
Yeah.
next turn.
Well, I mean, the mage can attack the witch if that happens, but still, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, the mage will just die to like amphibians, right?
Right. The issue is that even if he has his harpy positioned there, it's not doing anything. I mean, at this point, he may as well just trade it off for anything, because the harpy is really, it's doing nothing. At any point, it's going to be threatened by the mage or the witch. So he really just needs to trade it for something, in my opinion.
If you do trade off the mage, that dragon becomes very, very threatening, because now the only counter you have to it is the witch. And
Yeah, he definitely does not want to
The
lose
witch
his
will
mage.
Which will not get a crit if Ash positions his dragon next to a witch, so it's not even that great of a counter. So yeah.
I just thought of the reason why he might have put the Elder Shield where he did. It's
Oh.
because it can reinforce off the racks.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. But even if I wanted to do that, I would have put it like 1 tile higher on the river.
Yeah, that's right. I think I would have done the same thing.
Oh, but that is an interesting angle. I hadn't considered that. So for those of you who don't know, Emerald's Crystal can reinforce just like regular units. The same thing can be done with Green Finger's Vines. They can reinforce off friendly barracks and can be healed by I think they can be healed by alchemists. So yeah,
They can be
So-
healed by alchemists, that's correct.
Yeah.
in subtlety.
I don't think Emerald's Crystal can be healed by alchemists, though.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it can.
I believe I've tried it before. I could be wrong, but I'm like 80% sure.
But even if he does do that, try to reinforce off the racks, it's not gonna work forever, and because a Rex regenerates 1 health a turn, but the crystal depletes 2,
Right.
so it'll
I
prolong
really
its life.
don't like... Go ahead.
So it'll prolong its life for a little bit, but crystal is still dead eventually. Yeah, what you're saying?
I don't like the way that Red Halo has positioned his units here. He's taken his amphibians down away from that pikes that he's got in the middle, and because of the way his units are positioned, he's probably just going to lose those pikes for free. And those amphibians aren't really doing anything.
Those amphibians can just go right back to their original spots. They actually still threaten the same tiles.
That's true.
This way they can move to the left river if he doesn't move in.
I don't think he can really salvage the left river, though.
I mean, no. But what else can he do at this point?
Right.
So, it is interesting to note that Trev is still guarding the majority of Red's pikes. There's like one pike that is not covered by it. But it does look like Ash will be able to get off free dragon hits this turn. For example, murder that swordsman with like 0 consequences.
Yeah, I think what Red Halo's thinking is that he can just say, okay, whatever, take the sword and I'll just trade the Harpy in it for a little bit of gold.
But the Harpy can get hit by the witch.
Right, but I think his thought is that the Harpy is doing nothing.
Okay.
Because it's not. I mean, it's very ineffective.
True.
At
But
the
I
very
mean-
least, he might just trade it for a little bit of gold.
No, like, I have to question like throwing the Harpy away so casually here. Like, it's one thing to get, you know, a first strike on it. First strike something with the Harpy. It's quite another.
I feel like his decision here is to try and save the night, but
Yeah. It is to save the night, but I don't know, I just feel like that could have been done better without exposing the Harpy, yeah. Because the Harpy didn't have to move to that square to defend the knight.
I mean, there is the point that if he does move the witch down, it will eat the alchemist.
Right.
Well, I think that's that's what Ash does. I think this is a great trade for Ash.
Yeah.
It's still a fine trade for him, but it is a decent trade, I suppose. If the Harpy's doing nothing, you bait the witch down. The witch dies, or does it die? It should die, right?
Die. Yeah.
Yeah.
This has an absurdly high base damage against all the air units. Except the dragon, which it does not one-shot.
Yeah, so the dragon's just going to kill the sword here, I think.
Yeah, this does look pretty nasty.
Hesitating on the dragon play there. Maybe he's thinking whether...
He's thinking about killing the knight.
Oh, he is thinking about killing the knight. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That is actually possibly a better play. Because, you know, the sword...
I think he's got so much income that he doesn't really have to worry about it.
Right.
Losing potentially a good amount of his dragon's HP to the mage.
Yeah, and yeah, that's actually, I think that's a good play now that I think about it. Because, you know, the mage can only hit one thing. If it hits the witch, it's getting 800 gold. If it hits the dragon, it's getting maybe 1,000 gold. So why not just take the knight? It's like 500 extra value.
Right.
So Ash's strategy of, say, controlling the center with pikes, while, say, using more mobile units to control the sides, seems to be working very well.
Absolutely.
Pikes really have no trouble getting to or holding the middle because of how they are.
Right.
And there's plenty of units that can keep the sides busy.
Yeah.
I think the trouble for Red Halo is that he made that cavalry and that harpy with the money that Ash used to make the dragon.
Right.
And that was kind of really the tail of the tempo of this game, is that Red Halo couldn't really get off any threats with the harpy and the cavalry. But Ash's dragon was so good in the middle that he could move everywhere, and Red Halo wasn't able to do anything.
Right. That dragon was basically uncontested for like...
Yeah.
Moved all the way to the right to threaten the northeast, forced out a witch by Red Halo. The witch has done nothing since, just defend, which a mage could have done. This dragon has put in a lot of work, basically. But we do want to note that Red Halo is slightly ahead on income because of this southwest village that he managed to capture. Maybe that makes up for some of it, but I think he's still at a pretty heavy disadvantage right now.
Yeah, I think Ash right now is thinking about how, if at all, he can take advantage in the mid.
Yeah, okay, it's hard to imagine Ash pushing in very hard right here, because that trap is still covering a lot of vital defensive positions, but, you know, Ash could definitely just position his units just outside trap range and threaten a lot of stuff. Which does need some ranged units in the center, I think, if he wants to make a push there.
That was odd. I'd like to note, though, that even though Ash does have the superior position, he has to be really careful not to misplay. Because it's not as if Red Halo doesn't have anything in the middle here.
He definitely has plenty in the middle, although I feel like even though it's all clustered together, it's still kind of split just by terrain.
Right.
What he could effectively attack is very limited.
So, earlier in the commentary, we did say that crystals can kill off buildings. I'm not actually sure if that's true, now that I think about it. The vines definitely can, but I don't know if the crystals can.
The vines can, I want to say the crystals can't. Because I don't believe Alchemist's healing works on them. And that was something that does work on vines.
Right, okay,
So
so
that must have changed then, alright.
for anyone who wants to note. So Red Halo could actually take advantage of the dragon right now and maybe try to engage in the middle, because he does have a significant amount of stuff and he can get off some reasonably alright first strikes. So whether it'll be enough to turn around the game. Yeah. Look, we can kill maybe a sword and 2 pikes. Stuff nearby too, I mean. So, actually this could be okay.
I think Ash just collapses on him. I mean, if that happens.
Right, but you have to try it, right? Otherwise it's just lost if you don't do anything.
Right.
Basically, that's the only plan I can come up with right now for Red Halo that doesn't lose the game.
I don't think he has the offenses to commit to it, even if he wanted to.
Right.
With the Treb out of range and 5 Aquanauts that would have to go on land, I don't think he can really make a push that would be of any value, especially against Mercia, who will just
Right.
fix it.
But at least it's unclear. You want something that's unclear when you're losing.
I don't know. I think that might be a little too clear, honestly.
Oh,
I could see. Let's see. If he used those spears well, he could get 2 or 3 kills, maybe, at best.
yeah, it's probably not much, but I would try it right now. Otherwise, you just lose. But then, just
There's
kidding.
there's the archer finally.
Yeah.
All right.
I think they were both a little late to that. I would have built an archer on either side, somewhere in the middle, or even maybe early middle.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think,
looks like Red Halo resigns.
yeah. I think that was really, really well played by Ash.
Was
I think Red Halo made some critical mistakes in the early game that really cost him in the mid game, positioning wise. First was he put that knight, he spawned it in the incorrect position. If he had spawned that knight on the forest north of his racks so that it could go north to support his troops, he might have been able to get a better position in the middle. And then I think the the Harpy in general was probably not the right buy. What do you guys think?
I think both of them should have bought archers at some point in the middle, but
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like this kind of proves how strong spears can still be even on maps made against them and without the support of trebuchets.
I think this map isn't sort of an anti-spear map. It's more like an anti-trebuchet map, right? Because the spears
Right.
can move so
Yeah,
easily.
I would agree with that. It's just they have so much free movement in the middle, they can pretty much immediately get there, and the sides are vulnerable, are like, you know, something that's a little bit unattainable to them. But you have Aquanauts to do that, so
It'd be interesting to see what would happen if faster archers were built in the case. See if the pikes would be weaker in the middle. I think in general you're probably going to build pikes in the middle just because you need something in the front line, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. So right now I think it's just the defensive value of pikes is too high. There's no easy way to get rid of them.
Right.
Crit when standing next to each other, which means their damage values are basically buffed by 1.5 times.
Well, Zero.
damage values are pretty damn good to start with too. It's not like they really need the.
Right. Well, Zero, Vi, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
well played
been
to
fun.
Ash, and
Played to Ash.
also to Red Halo and Story Eater.
Fight by Red Halo. Thanks for an entertaining game.
Yeah. Congratulations to Ash. Vi, Zero, thanks for joining us, and we're going to head over to Gavin, who's going to close out the first edition of the Stronghold Series.
Thanks, Kale.
Thanks for having us.
Big shout out to our casters for giving us a very entertaining show, for helping us really just distill how crazy that match was. Thanks to our competitors. Ash will be once again the champion of the Stronghold Series. Won Groove of War, won this rematch set against Red Halo for the prize money this week. If you guys think you can take on Ash, once again, we are taking applications. Quick exclamation Stronghold in chat. That was great, guys. Once again, thank you to everybody. You can check out future matches on this channel. Give a quick follow on Twitch. Ash_IRE also streams. We're going to be rating him right after this. But we'll see you guys next time. We'll keep an eye on future Groove of Wars. We'll keep an eye on future Stronghold Series. The next one will be in about 2 weeks once we lock in with our champion when he's available. But we're super excited for this series to launch off. Once again, thank you, Kale, Vi, Zero Nix. Congrats to our champion Ash, and thank you to our challengers, Story Eater and Red Halo. We'll see you guys next time.